What is going down, my YouTube family? It's your boy Zary from Zary's Mobile Gaming, back at you today to bring you the next installment in the Noob series, Pride Faction. What we're going to do is we're going to, just like always, we're going to look at each character, kind of go over their move kit, how we would ruin them, and go from there. So before we get into that, if you are not part of the family and you want to be part of the family, click that subscribe button down below so you're not missing a thing coming your way. So let's get into Pride, and we're going to start with Revolt. Let's get into it. Revolt. Revolt is a clan's pride fighter, warrior, gladiator, and a leader. His stats are as follows. He has 26,373 health, 29,399 shield, physical armor at 34%, magical armor at 28%, physical damage at 3175, critical chance at 2187, critical damage at 150, and speed at 130. So let's take a look at his moves. His first move is Rapture. It deals 240% of physical damage to an enemy and inflicts bleeding for 2 turns. So it automatically inflicts it. We don't need to worry about potency, and it deals physical damage. So damage is important, and bleeding. Revolt's second ability is Swipe. It deals 240% of physical damage to all enemies. So AoE damage based off his physical damage. Ability 3 is Eviscerate. Eviscerate deals 400% of physical damage to an enemy. If the target is bleeding, he recovers 75% of his turn meter. So we learn that his Eviscerate, we don't want to use that unless they have bleeding on the target, so he's recovering that turn meter rate. So we want to use the first ability to get that bleed on, and then we go to Eviscerate. His passive ability is called Bloodlust. Revolt deals 20% more damage for each stack of bleeding on the enemies. You know, his first ability only puts one target with bleeding on there, so we want to make sure we're kind of pairing him with someone who can put out a lot more bleeds to kind of increase his overall damage, so like a Snorri. And finally, his leadership ability is One with the Pride. All allies of the Pride gain 30% of their max health and a 50% chance to restore 1 turn of a random ability at the start of their turn. It's not a terrible leadership, but it's really not the best one the Pride have. In my opinion, that would be Hera. But all in all, it's not really a bad leadership. I did think it was garbage for a long time, but as I played around with it, it can be used, especially like if you're looking for more of like a nuke team or a very heavily offensive minded team where you don't want Hera and Salvador combination. This can be useful. So the takeaways from Revolt is he's a very heavy damage dealer. He's very much a glass cannon, and he needs physical damage and bleed. Now we don't need to worry about potency for his bleed sets, but we want to get his damage up there. The way I'm going to ruin him is critical chance and critical damage. So just maximizing his damage. Putting the extra 15% damage would be nice. But what I really want to go for is I want to go for that extra 8% crit chance and then the 30% critical damage on top of that. So when he does crit, he is critting for way, way more. So that's how we're going to ruin him. So I'm going to put some runes on him and I'll be right back. Okay, so I got them all runed up, and this is where we're going to go. I went with the critical damage, critical chance set like I spoke about, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus primarily on speed and damage as the secondary stats. Not too worried about survivability. That's just going to be a plus as it comes. So let's go over the runes. Obviously damage, armor, and speed. Northeastern rune, I went with damage, speed, and armor. Southeastern rune, obviously armor, damage, hit twice, which is nice, shield, speed, and health. Then the southern rune, I went with a critical damage rune just to give him a little bit more oomph. Damage, tenacity, shield, and potency popped on there. And then I went with shield, damage, which hits twice, gave him almost another extra 0.5%. Potency, meh. Armor, and then another almost % critical chance. And then here I went with damage primary. Speed of 2, armor, shield, and shield. So let's see what that did to his stats. So overall, we brought his physical, if my mouse wants to work for me, we brought his physical damage to 3521. brought it up 364%. We brought his critical chance up almost 9% to 30.86. We brought his critical damage up to 204. We brought his health up to 26,522, his physical armor and his magic armor about 3% and 4% respectively. His shield we brought up 4,300. We brought up his speed 10% to 140. His potency came up 2% and his life steal is obviously nothing. So the more I look at this character and the more I'm going to have to play with him, I haven't really dived into a lot of gameplay with him other than using him here and there in challenges and things. So a couple other options I was considering, and if you guys run your Revolt differently, let me know. Obviously we have the damage set with a critical chance. I was thinking we could go speed with a critical chance as well to give him that extra speed so he's going more often to inflict that bleed, increasing his overall damage. But this is the way I would start the process with him. So if you guys do it different, please let me know. Okay, next up on the list we have Hera. She is clans, pride, tactician, warrior, and a leader. Her stats are as follows. She has 14,927 health. She has 18,400 shield. Physical armor is at 31%, magic armor is at 30%, physical damage is at 2817, critical chance is at 27.46, and speed is at 143. So let's take a look at her moves. Her first ability is called Precision Strikes. It deals 250% of physical damage to an enemy. Hera gains the combo effect for 4 turns. This effect cannot be prevented or removed. So what we learned here is that she puts the combo effect on herself, which we'll learn about in the upcoming moves, and then it deals physical damage to the enemy. Ability 2 is called Shred. It deals 370% of physical damage to an enemy, and then it removes all combo stacks from Hera, and it deals an extra 40% physical damage for each stack removed. So physical damage is going to be very, very important for Hera, and the combo stacks, so you definitely want to build those up. And now in her first ability, it said it lasts for 4 turns, so you want to build that up to at least 3 or 4 before you unleash Shred to get the maximum potential out of that damage. Her third ability is called Oasis Shadows. Gains a dodge increase and a critical chance increase and applies both to one ally for 2 turns. All other allies gain invisibility. So this is a really good mechanic to put onto a tank. I like this ability a lot. Her passive ability is called Cat Stealth. If she doesn't take damage for 1 turn, she gains invisibility for 1 turn and recovers 30% of the turn meter at the end of her turn. So this is why it's important to run a tank with her. You definitely want to try to mitigate the damage she is taking, because she'll go invisible and get 30% of her turn meter back. So increasing her chance to do those basics and build up the combo move. Very, very good passive, and it works in her kit extremely well. Then her leadership ability is a mouthful, but let's get into it. It's called Submission Holds. All allies from the Pride gain 20% dodge. When the battle starts, all allied Pride defenders gain taunt for 2 turns, so pre-taunts with Salvador. When the battle starts, all Pride healers and tacticians gain invisibility for 2 turns. When the battle starts, Pride fighters gain a damage increase for 2 turns. So this is nice. We're increasing damage, so if you put Revolt in there, he's getting a damage increase. We are putting our healers under stealth. The Pride don't have a healer at the moment, which we'll get into, but just this submission hold leadership increases the overall survivability of your Pride tenfold. So what did we learn from Hera? She gives herself turn meters, so speed, we could probably put one in the northeastern rune, and then secondary stats, but we don't really need to go to the extreme of putting a speed set on her. Everything is based off physical damage. Her basic's going to put up that combo, and then her second ability is going to come through and take those combos off, but it's going to deal percentage of her physical damage per stack. So we want to try to get her physical damage up as high as we possibly can get it. So I'm going to rune her, and we'll be right back. Okay, we have a full rune amulet, and I decided to go with the damage set and a critical chance set. Now you could forego the critical chance and put health on there, because she does have a very, very low health pool, but I decided not against that at the moment. So What I am looking for in secondary stats is obviously damage. We want to give her a little speed, and then we want to increase her survivability because she is a very squishy character. So let's get into it. We have damage, health, armor, and shield. We went with damage over the speed because you will be increasing your turn meter. The critical chance, potency doesn't really do much, but the damage hit twice. And then we have health. I went with armor, health, shield, speed, and armor. Now I didn't put damage on this rune simply for the fact of it gave me 4 extra speed, and the added survivability from this rune is pretty good. Then I went with damage, shield, speed, potency we didn't need, but I like the health boost and the speed and shield combination. Then I went with shield, damage, health, tenacity, and then I went with damage, shield, damage, armor, and speed. So let's see what it did to her overall stats. So what it did to the overall stats is we increased her physical damage by 810, bringing it to 3627. We brought her critical chance up 9%, so she's hitting in the 1 in 3 range. We brought her health up by 575, bringing it to 15502. Armor and physical armor and magical armor, 2% and almost 3%. So that's big, putting them both above 30. Her shield we brought up by 2812, bringing it to 21,212. Her speed we added 7, so she's at a respectable 170. So I'm very happy with what we did, and this should benefit the team, keeping her alive a little bit longer and making her hit harder on that second ability when she cleanses out all that combo. We're going to talk about Salvador. Salvador is a clan's pride and defender. He is just a tank's tank. I love Salvador and his move kit and his mechanics. So let's go over his stats. His health is at 30,967. His shield is at 29,599. Physical armor is at 34%. Magic armor is at 30%. Physical damage is at 2398. Critical chance is at 19.47, and his speed is at 95. We'll get into his moves, and then we'll talk a little bit about his speed, because there's something I want to talk about his speed when I get there. His first ability is called Strike, the 5th one. Deals 210% of physical damage with a 40% chance to gain shield equal to 10% of max health. So, physical damage, but max health. His max health is going to increase his shield. So the more health we have on this character, the more he's going to increase his shield. Second ability deals 400% of physical damage to an enemy and gains taunt for 2 turns. I love taunting mechanisms that do something besides just taunt. So this is huge. I love the fact that he goes in and he deals 400% of physical damage, which isn't a whole heck of a lot, but he's at least doing something while he's putting up his taunt. This is the move that makes Salvador stud. Is his Steel Shell. He gains Steel Shell for 2 turns and decreases all damage taken by 90%. Salvador has a 50% chance to gain debuff immunity for 2 turns. So when he puts this self on him, he's pretty much making himself indestructible. You can't really get around it unless you have a Dispeller. And then if he does get the debuff immunity popped, it's even better. He's just this move is just fantastic, and you can put it on under the Hera lead. You can put this bad boy up because he's already got the pre-taunt, and he barely takes any damage at all. Really, really helps the team out. And his passive ability is the Power of the Ancient. Salvador gains 35% physical armor, and an additional 5% for each living Pride character in the party. So he's already sitting at 43% physical armor. So you put him in a full Pride faction, and he is looking at 78% physical armor plus 5 for each living Pride character in the party. So you're looking at, if you put him in a full Pride team, you're looking at another 25%. So that brings his physical armor to almost 100%. But the problem with Salvador is his magic armor. His magic armor, he gets shredded by a Nightingale. He gets shredded by a Freezard. Anybody who's dealing magic damage can cut through his armor extremely quick, and I've noticed that. So we got to keep that in mind when we're ruining him. So what did we learn about Salvador? We learned that going over Hera's kit, he's going to get the pre-taunt right away. So we know that. We know that his Steel Shell ability takes down his damage. He's giving himself physical armor, but we're not helping his magic armor. And we also learned that he recovers shield based on his max health. So I think the way we're going to rune this guy is we're going to look for some armor, maybe an armor set to increase that magic damage or magic armor. And then we're going to look at health to boost that overall max health so he's recovering more of his shield. So let me rune him and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have him. We have the full rune amulet, and I went with an armor set and then health. So what did that do to us? Just from the bonuses, we gave ourselves an additional 20% armor, and then we gave ourselves an additional 20% health. So that'll be big for the overall stats. So let's take a look at the runes. I went for straight survivability, nothing more. Now I talked about speed with Salvador. And you normally want your tank to be like the 125, 130 range, which I've talked about before. But when it comes to Salvador, you want him as slow as possible. You don't want to try to put any extra speed on him because he's going to get the pre-taunt from Hera. If you're running him with a Hera team, he's going to get the pre-taunt. So we don't got to worry about popping that. Then when he gets his steel shell up, you want him to be able to leave that on as long as possible. So what I did is, obviously you need damage, but I went armor, armor, health, health. Then I went health. I got 3 speed on this, but I couldn't get one that didn't have damage or crit chance. It was very frustrating, so I just left it. But getting the extra 2.6 per health with the armor is a nice touch. Then I went with armor, health, health, armor, and shield. Very good tank rune. Health, health, armor, critical chance, and shield. Then I went with health, armor, critical chance, damage, and shield. And then we have health, health, potency, tenacity, and armor. So let's see what we did with his stats. Looking at his overall stats, we increased his physical damage by 118, and I'm not too worried about that. His critical chance went up 4%, again, not too worried. But his health went up an astounding 11,275%, bringing him to 42,242. Now he's going to get 10% of his max health equated to that shield. So about 4,200 shield getting put back. That's huge. We brought up his magic armor to 38.9%, so that definitely helps. And we brought his physical armor up by 7.38% to 50%. So with all his added bonuses running in a Pride team, he's going to be over 100% physical armor. His shield we brought up 986, but he's going to be recovering that, so I wasn't too worried about that. I'd rather have more health. So that brings it up to 30,585. We added 3 speed, so he's at 98. I'm okay with where he's at. Potency and tenacity really doesn't matter. So extremely happy with the rune choices for Salvador and how we brought up his combined shield and shield and health over 70,000. So very tanky, very slow. He's gonna do what we want in this team. Next up on the list we have Kagi. Kagi is a Clan's Pride Fighter Mage and a Dragon Slayer. Coming in next is Kagi. Kagi is a Clan's Pride Fighter Mage and a Dragon Slayer. Starting out, Kagi's health is at 13,839. Shield is at 16,453. Physical armor is at 25%. Magical armor is at 30%. Magic damage, 3,022. Crit chance at 19.08. And speed at 149. So let's take a look at the moves. First ability is Lashing Wind. It deals 160% of magic damage to an enemy and a 50% chance to repeat this attack. The 50% chance has nothing to do with potency, so very, very much we have to just focus on magic damage. Second ability is Tornado. Deals 190% of magic damage to all enemies, a 50% chance to apply accuracy to all allies for 3 turns. So again, nothing to do with potency, but magical damage. Third ability is Wind Speed. Gains haste and applies it to 4 allies for 2 turns. So she's speeding up the team for 2 turns, or he's speeding up the team for 2 turns. That's all we learned from that ability, honestly. And that can kind of suck if one of the 4 allies is Salvador. But it is what it is. And the passive ability is Alliance of Winds. Kagi gains 30% magic damage increase if Bori is in the party when the battle starts. Both gain a damage increase for 2 turns. So, Kagi has synergy with Bori, but Kagi gains the 30% damage increase regardless. But on top of that, if Bori is there, they both gain more damage. So what did we learn from Kagi? We learned he needs physical damage. His whole kit is based off physical damage, but if you look here, he has extremely low health and extremely low shield. So we want to look for that in the secondaries. So there are a couple different ways I could go. Is you could definitely want a damage set on there to give him the extra added damage, but you could put a health set in there, giving him a little bit more health, increasing his survivability. You could go crit chance because his crit chance is very low. So we could also put crit chance on him. So I'll be right back. I'm going to play around with the runes and see which ones I find are the best. Okay, rune amulet is full. Now what I decided to do is I decided to go damage critical chance. It's harder to find secondary critical chance stats than it is to find health and survivability. So I took the guaranteed percentage of critical chance over the guaranteed health because I know I can fill in that 10% health with secondary stats, but I can't fill in that extra 6 or 8% critical chance that I'm going to get from secondary runes and stats of that nature. So that's the way I went. So let's look it over. We went with damage, critical chance, health, tenacity, and armor. We went speed, shield, damage, armor, health. We went armor, shield, health, and speed. We went with damage, health, damage, tenacity, and armor. We went with shield, damage, tenacity, speed, and armor. And then we went with health. We could have put damage here, but I wanted that extra 2.6% health. And then we had speed, armor, shield, and critical chance. So let's see what it did to his overall stats. His overall stats, we brought up his magical damage to 3662, giving him an extra 640%. We got his critical chance up to 10, or up by 10, so now it is at a respectable 30.3%, 30.03%. We brought up his health by 898, brings his total health up to 14,737. We brought up his physical armor by almost 4% and his magical armor by almost 5.5%. So that's a plus. And we brought up his shield by 2277, bringing it to 18,730. And we added 28 speed to him. And then on top of the haste bonus he is going to give himself, it's going to be a very good kit. Overall, I'm really happy with how Kagi turned out. I feel that, we gave him a little bit more survivability. He is going to be under stealth if you use him under a Hera lead. He's going to have Salvador next to him. So we just have to worry about bumping his armor a little bit for those AoE. So we got his magic armor to 35%. We bumped his damage and his crit chance up so he hits harder. And we got a little bit more speed on him. 177 is a very respectable speed. So really happy with what we did with Kagi. Up next on the list, we have the brand new character Yogi. And I love this character, and his in-depth guide will be coming out hopefully tomorrow. So got one more Christmas to do today, and then back to regularly scheduled videos. But Kagi is a Pride fighter, mage, and a dragon slayer. Okay, he has a total health of 20,680. Total shield of 22,451. Physical armor is at 31.24%. Magic armor is at 35.42%. Magic damage is at 28.81. Critical chance is at 15.78. And speed is at 128. So let's take a look at his moves. First move is Sand Strike. It deals 240% of magic damage to an enemy. 50% chance to inflict slow for 2 turns against poison enemies, and a 30% chance to stun. So what did we learn? Magic damage, potency to inflict the slow if you're running him with somebody with poison, but without poison he still has a 30% chance to stun. So potency and magical damage. Second ability, Sandstorm, deals 220% of magical damage to the target and 110% of magic damage to all other enemies, inflicts blindness for 2 turns on the main target. Really cool move. Love this. You can see he needs magic damage, obviously, but you can't just, if there's a taunt up, obviously, and you're using this the tank's going to get blindness. But if there isn't a taunt up, you got to be selective of where you're putting this because you automatically inflict blindness. So you want to put that on your AoE damage dealer, even though that might not be the one you want to kill first. You got to keep that in mind, and you got to pay attention when you use Sandstorm. Third ability, Sands of Time, restores 2 random ability cooldowns and a 50% turn meter gain to the target ally. This is a really cool move. For the first time, you can choose who's getting the turn meter buff. Normally it always says random ally and you click it and you just pray. But this one you can actually choose who you want it to, give it to. So really, really beneficial, really, really cool move. I like Sands of Time a lot. And passive ability, Yogi gains 30% potency. If Vorian the Trickster is in the battle as well, they both gain 30% potency. Now this is really cool because Vorian the Trickster has 0 potency. And I'm not joking around, I mean 0. So that automatically gives Vorian 30% potency. Yogi's gaining 30% potency, so that is big because he can stun, he can inflict blind, and until you get it to level 6, it's only a chance. He can also inflict slow, so you definitely want a lot of potency on this character, so really, really big. So what did we learn? So what did we learn from Yogi? We learned he needs physical damage. We learned he needs potency. And that's exactly how I'm going to ruin him. His speed is at a 128. And we could put a speed set on him. But then we'd have to either put a health or potency in there. And taking away the amount of physical damage that he could do. Right now, I don't see that being the best option. I think we can make his speed very respectable without the 10% bonus that you would get from his rune words. I feel the extra 15% damage outweighs the extra 10% speed. So if we take a look at that and it's based off of his, we would be putting on an extra 12 to 13 speed, where we're putting on an extra 310 damage. So I'd rather have the 310 damage than the 13 speed. We can make that up in the runes for sure. So I'm going to rune him, and I'll be right back. We are back with a full rune amulet. I went with damage and potency. What I'm looking for is speed secondaries, more damage, more potency, survivability. So what we did here is we went damage, speed, armor, and health. Excellent rune for him. We went speed, damage, shield, potency, and health. Again, very good rune for him. Armor, health, potency, health, and damage. Potency at twice, so another 2% potency. That's pretty big. Then we went with damage, shield, critical chance, health, and speed. Then we went with health, speed, armor, and shield. Then we went with an extra potency up here with health, speed, armor. So all in all, I like it so far, but let's see what it did to his stats. Okay, stat-wise, we were able to increase his magic damage by 626, bringing it to 3507. Crit chance by 1%, not too worried about that. His health we brought up 1765. Physical armor and magic armor about 2% each. His shield we brought up 1194. His speed we brought up 31, bringing him to 159. I will take that for now until we get more testing done. And his potency we added 35.77, so he has 57.77 to start. And remember, he's going to give himself an additional 30% potency at the start of the battle, so he will be at almost 90% potency. So they definitely should land those slows. If there's poison, and he should land those stuns. Very happy with what we did with Yogi. All in all, Yogi is a very interesting character. I'm not going to get into him too much because I don't want to ruin the in-depth breakdown of him coming hopefully tomorrow. So that's Yogi. Moving on. Quickly looking at Boris Stats, his health is at 20,916. His shield is at 23,722. His physical armor is at 29%. Magic armor is at 36%. Physical damage is at 3,054. Critical chance is at 31.18, and speed is at 159. So let's look at his moves. First ability is called Finishing Shot. It deals 200% of physical damage to an enemy. If the target has the least health left, it deals 250% of physical damage instead. So straight up physical damage. His second ability is Wounding Arrow. It deals 300% of physical damage to an enemy and applies 2 stacks of bleeding for 2 turns. So we have the physical damage, and then we also have the tie-in with Revolt in the Pride because he is putting bleeding for 2 turns. His third ability, Power of Winds, Boris gains a critical damage increase, and haste for 2 turns. If Kagi is on the battlefield, he recovers the same buffs, and then he recovers 30% of his turn meter. So this is kind of like Snorri's Berserk stance, where you want to pop this first before you really get into anything else. But he does give himself some nice buffs with a little synergy from Kagi. Then his passive ability is that Boris gains 10% physical damage increase for each living Pride in the party. If Kagi is on the battlefield, they both gain armor increase for 2 turns at the start of the battle. So definitely synergy with Kagi, and he does give himself physical damage increase. If you're running him with an all Pride, that is an extra 50% damage increase. So that is huge. So the way I think we're going to ruin this guy is we're going to go critical chance, critical damage. He's giving him, if you're running him with a Pride, he's giving himself 50% physical damage, so we can shy away from that. We're going to be looking for secondary runes of speed, damage, crit chance, survivability. So let me rune him and I'll be right back. Okay, we are back with a full rune amulet for Boris. So I went with the critical chance, critical damage aspect of things. So I went with damage, critical chance, damage, armor, armor, speed, tenacity, armor, health, and damage. I went with armor, damage, tenacity, shield, and health. Critical damage, armor, shield, health, and critical chance. If one of these were damaged, this rune would be dynamite for him, but I'll take it. Then we went with health here, critical chance, armor, damage, and health. Then I went for the damage primary again with armor, damage, speed at a 5, that was nice, and an armor. So let's see what it did to his overall stats. So for his overall stats here, we were able to bring up his physical damage by 260, but remember he's going to give himself physical damage, so it's at 3314. We brought up his critical chance by 10.8% to 41.99. His critical damage we brought up 54.15, which is huge. Then we brought up his health by 1011, bringing it to 21,927. Physical armor and magic armor both by 8, I wish it was 8, both by 3. Then we brought up his shield by 377. We brought up his speed 28 to 187, so that's huge. Very, very happy with this choice. This should make Boris here hit like a truck. So, very happy with what we did. Okay, next up on the list we have Vorian the Trickster. Vorian the Trickster is a Pride Tactician, Rogue, and a Bounty Hunter. His health to start is at 16,398. His shield is at 19,495, physical armor at 27%, magic armor at 24.99, physical damage at 29.64, critical chance at 26.18, and speed at 159. Looking at his moves, his first move is his basic Poison Needles, deals 230% of physical damage, and has a 80% chance to poison the target for 2 turns. So we need potency and we need physical damage. Sneaky Maneuver, he deals 360% of physical damage to an enemy, deals 420% of physical damage if the target is poisoned, and then he poisons the target for 3 turns. So physical damage and poisoning deals 320% of piercing damage to an enemy, removes 3 poison stacks, dealing 100% of piercing damage for each stack removed, and piercing damage ignores enemy's armor. This doesn't have to do with physical damage, but it has to do with the application of poisons onto an enemy. So keep that in mind. Then his passive ability is 30% chance to apply 2 stacks instead of 1 when the ability applies poison. So this has to do with potency. Looking at his potency, 0, like I said before. So pairing him with Yogi, he would have at least 30%. But if you're not pairing him with Yogi, and a lot of people don't have Yogi, that could be a problem. So a lot of his moves are based off of physical damage and applying poisons. But his major massive dealing ability is his poisoning. So what I'm thinking is that he removes 3 stacks of poison from his enemy and then deals, 100% more piercing damage for each stack removed. But the only way he can put on poison is he has an 80% chance to poison the target for 2 turns on his basic, and then he poisons the target for 3 turns. So we have a cooldown there, and then his basic. So I think I'm going to try to make him as fast as we possibly can with some potency to make sure we're landing the poisons and ignoring the physical damage, because we can't increase that piercing damage, and most of his damage is going to come from that piercing damage. So I'm going to try out speed and potency on him, and we're going to come back and see how I do. Rune Amulet is full. We are back. I went with speed and potency. I focused primarily on speed secondaries, damage, and potency secondaries with survivability sprinkled in. So here's what we got. We have damage, potency, speed, health, and armor. We have speed, health, tenacity, shield, shield. We have armor, speed, shield, health, and potency. We have damage, shield, shield, and armor. We have shield, potency, health, health, armor, and potency, tenacity, armor, damage, and armor. So let's see what it did to his stats. Now for his overall stats, we brought up his physical damage by 206, and we weren't focusing on that. So, but he's still at 3170, which is good. We didn't touch his critical chance. We didn't touch his critical damage. We brought up his health by 561. We brought up his armor by about 2% on both, and we brought up his shield by 3,288, bringing it to 22,783. But we brought his speed up to 45 by 45, bringing him over 200. So that way he can constantly use his basic and his second ability before he unleashes that mass piercing damage. So that is what we wanted to do. We brought up his potency by 36.81%. That is big for a character that has 0 potency to start with, so that's definitely what we wanted to accomplish there. So all in all, I kind of like the way we built him, so he can get those poisons on the team, and then he can constantly be moving and going. You put him with a Kagi and a Yogi and a Bori, it's going to be a lot of damage coming out. Next up on the list, we have Renara, the healer, and we all know we need her, and we all can't wait to get her. So let's take a look at her move kit, and we can kind of theory craft a little on her. First move, battle healing. Deals 210% of physical damage to an enemy, applies regeneration to a random ally for 3 turns. The only thing I don't like about this move is that it's a random ally. So you could put this on somebody who doesn't need it, but it is a basic ability, so let's just move on. Ability 2 is Mass Recovery, heals all allies for 600% of Renara's magic damage and applies regeneration for 3 turns. So she is heavy regeneration dealer, and she's healing for 600% of magic damage. That's pretty big. Third ability, resurrects a random ally and granting them 50% health and applying regeneration for 2 turns. So again, we see regeneration, but the resurrection is the only one in the game. That's awesome. And her passive ability, if Renara has 2 regeneration stacks at the end of the turn, she gains cheat death for 2 turns and recovers 30% health. So we know that regeneration is vital to her kit, and that is why, because she can get cheat death and recover 30% of her health at the end of each turn. So that's kind of cool. Possible synergy with Sinjil. So that's kind of neat. And, Tromgar, possibly, under a Rantha lead. So very, very interesting kit. Without being able to see her health and survivability, obviously, it is kind of tough to see where we should go, but quickly looking over this, I would put a health set on because she recovers her max health with her passive if she has regeneration, and I would go damage, increasing that magical damage as much as we possibly could. Okay, my YouTube family, that is Pride for Noobs. I hope everybody was able to learn something from it, and I hope everybody was able to take away something from it. A couple of things that you can take away from the Pride that I learned while making this is that they are very, very heavy in the damage, and they have a lot of synergy together, and it's almost dang near impossible to get them all on the battlefield together and make that team work. They're desperately missing Renara, who is the healer, but you got to think. Revolt, damage dealer, Bori, damage dealer, Voin the Trickster, damage dealer, Kagi, damage dealer. You have your leader, besides Revolt, and Hera. So if you want that synergy between Hera and Salvador, you got to use them both. I mean, you could use a Revolt and still have Salvador in there. But then you have Yogi too, who has synergy and helps you out with turn meter and damage, AoE. So very interesting kit, and very interesting combinations and theory crafting. So, but the composition of this whole faction will change once Renara comes into the game. So again, everybody, I hope everybody had a great Christmas out there. I did. Had a wonderful Christmas. Like I said, one more today to go, then I am done and back to my regularly scheduled videos. So thank you all for bearing with me with that. Also, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button, join the family, leave me comments. Love the interaction. Let's keep all that going. I hope now that the contest is over, people don't leave me comments, because I really like the interaction and I really like where that's at. So that's all I got for everybody today. Hope everybody's enjoying themselves. Hope they had a great Christmas. I love y'all. I'm out.